Welcome to another episode of Your Hope-Filled Perspective, where it's always our goal to restore hope, renew minds, and empower listeners to live in their God-given identity. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bengtson, and as always, I'm so delighted when you decide to take a few precious moments out of your week to spend it with us. Today is an episode that I just know you're going to love. How do I know that? Because I know today's guest. I've known her for over a decade, and I've seen the transformation that has happened in her life that she's going to share about today. Today, we're going to be talking about what we can do to take control of the areas of our life that are holding us back. The scripture that I've chosen for today's episode is Philippians 4:13 that says, "For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." It's my pleasure to introduce you to today's guest, Christine Carter Evans. She is newly married, and she is the founder of Weight Loss Hero based in Frisco, Texas, although she is now a California girl. But through her business, she coaches people looking to sustain a healthier lifestyle. Her own weight loss journey of 150 pounds lost has been highlighted on multiple media sites, including fitnessmagazine.com, the Today Show, and pop culture. Christine encourages her Weight Loss Hero tribe daily and teaches from the core principle that in order to achieve lasting change in your body, you must first transform your mind. And if you have been following me for any length of time, you know how much I preach about the importance of what we think and what we speak. So welcome to the program, Christine. I'm so excited for you to share your story and hope to my audience who's ready to make lasting change.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So often our passion comes out of our own hurts and trials. How have you seen that to be true in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny because I was talking to someone about this yesterday that so often when you're going through it, you don't understand it. You don't understand where is God? Why am I going through this? Why am I struggling with this thing that I'm struggling with? But it's so beautiful when you can look back and you can see that not only was it changing you for the better, but it was also preparing you to be able to provide hope for other people who are going through something similar. And that has been absolutely the story of my whole life, of anything that I've really gone through. It's not only been amazing what God's done in my own life and in my own heart, but the ability to hold hands with someone else and be like, hey, if I can do it, so can you. And I want to show you how, has been absolutely just amazing.
You've gone through some difficult times. You've
Yeah.
got a special needs brother who's just absolutely adorable. You had a difficult marriage. And
Good.
when I first met you, you were 150 pounds heavier
Yep.
than you are now. And I remember the days when you would come in and mentioned what you had at the fast food restaurant on the way into work and what you were going to have for lunch. That was kind of all consuming for you.
It was.
I think so often we have to hit rock bottom and be flat on our back before we're forced to look up to God for help.
Yep.
What was your rock bottom moment?
So I feel like really I've had, a rock bottom moment that kind of was the catalyst for my weight loss. But then after that, I had a rock bottom moment that was kind of not really a rock bottom, but an aha moment, if you will. That was kind of the catalyst for the true heart change. And it kind of one caused the other. For my weight loss, I knew I had a problem, and I knew my relationship with food was completely out of control. And the reality is, in hindsight, is that I was searching for the right thing in the wrong place, right? So I was searching for peace and happiness and to be free, but I was finding it in these momentary satisfying things like food. And so I actually had a family reunion. So this was like the last big family reunion that everyone was going to go to. And anyone who's overweight, even just a little bit, knows how much you dread going to like group things, weddings, birthdays. Like, I don't want to go. And my dad just kept asking me, please, it's the last one. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm just like, I don't like what I see. And what do you wear? And you don't feel good in your own skin. And so I was like reluctant to go. I was like, I'll go. And it was kind of my uncle Bruce, who I hadn't seen in about 10 years. So he hadn't seen me overweight. Now he's seen my Facebook profile, but we can angle things the right way. Um, you know, and but that was kind of like sealed the deal for me. I'm like, I hadn't seen him in so long. He's my favorite uncle. I'm going to go. And I just remember that morning so clearly. I remember like wanting to wear like an outfit and I found something that I actually felt like kind of okay in. Like, it was like, okay, I feel like this is, it's not drawing attention, but it's like a little flattering. It's a black shirt, like a little maxi skirt. And anyways, long story short, I went to this family reunion. And when I walked in, I saw my uncle Bruce and he like started approaching me and he comes to what I think say hello. And he literally looks me dead in the eye and goes, hi, and just keeps walking. Like, he had no idea who I was. And it still hadn't registered to me that it was because I was overweight.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, rude. So I go,
yeah, right.
I'm like, Bruce. And he looks at me and literally was like, I don't remember exactly if it was like, can I help you? But that's how it felt. Like, do you need someone? And I'm like, it's me, Christy. I went by Christy growing up. And he literally looked me up and down and went, oh, wow. And it was like this shocking moment. And he wasn't the only one that this like happened to, but he was the one that mattered. And when I left that day, I said something that was so powerful. I've said it several times since, but I said to myself that no matter what, I will never feel this way again. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what I have to do, but I will never feel this way again. And so the onset after that was like, of course we get stuck in these quick fix, what can I do really fast to lose some weight mentalities? But something captured me that day and something changed that day that I was like, I don't care if I fight the rest of my life, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight this. Like, I'm in the ring. I'm not going down and let down swinging from there.
Wow. I want to read a section out of your book. Friends, this is Christine's book, and I will link it in the show notes. But you say, the scariest and hardest part of this is that this phenomenon is not unique to me. During my time as a wellness coach, my eyes have been opened to the prevalence of trauma and abuse in our society and how it affects every aspect of its victims' lives, including long-term negative effects on health. But there are many other ways in which people's lives have been defined by their pain, leading them to self-destructive behaviors. Would you have considered the way you ate as a self-destructive behavior?
100%. Absolutely. It was literally for me like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Like, we've all heard that reference, right? Right. So I had unhealed parts of me, and what I ultimately needed was the great healer, right? I needed Jesus to come in and change that. And that's why, so just to kind of share that second piece, we can modify behaviors for a certain amount of time. But if we don't fix the root cause, and if we don't address ourselves, and if we don't face the heartache and the pain that we're carrying, it's only a matter of time before we either just find something else to help us cope, or we go back to the old patterns that we started with. It does not matter how much willpower you have, because when you're broken, you're still broken, right? And so this was me, is I'm sitting here chasing after status. I'm chasing after money. I'm chasing after significance. I'm had everything I thought I wanted. I lost the weight. I was at my goal weight. I had my dream body, and I'm sitting in my high rise that I thought I needed, crying my eyes out because I was more miserable than I'd ever been. Now that can sound very defeating to some people, like, oh, dang, I'm going to lose 150 pounds and then be more miserable. But for me, I had figured out how to modify my behaviors and I was on my way, but I hadn't surrendered my pain to Jesus yet.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the next moment for me that was like, not even all of that is going to bring me the peace I'm looking for. Not even all of that is going to bring me the joy and the happiness that I'm looking for. And that was kind of this moment that Jesus is like, all right, we're going to do a new thing. And so, but to your point about trauma, you know, traumas happen from childhood and they happen when we're adults, and we have things that are the reason that we make the choices that we make, but we also have a way out. We know that Jesus provides us that we always have another path. He will always give you the strength to face things, but we have to let go of the shortcuts. We have to let go of those things. And it's very difficult for us to sit with our feelings, right? We live in this society that tells us we got to tuck it in. Girl, tuck that in, okay? Don't let anybody see that you have struggle.
Be weak.
Don't be weak. You have to be tough. Don't cry. Don't let people see you struggle. You have to act like you're tough. That's the society we live in. And so that's what people are doing. But the thing is we still see it, and we see it in your weight, or we see it in your family life, or we see it in the choices that you make. So you were seeing that I would feel stressed out at work, and I was coming back with a Big Mac and a big fry and a large Coke, because that was going to be the thing that was going to get me through. That was the thing that was providing my peace at that time.
So what you were really doing was looking for a very quick, immediate, but temporary fix.
Yep.
That Big Mac, it tasted really good for the 3 minutes it took to eat it. But then, I don't know about you, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, you know, chocolate tastes really good while I'm eating it. But then when I'm done, I'm left with the same feelings that I had before I ate the chocolate.
And the learned behaviors of guilt, shame, regret,
Yes.
Belittling, all that. I mean, when you actually look at sugar, when you look at what the chemicals that they pump into our food, the dopamine response in the body is significant. I mean, there is an actual chemical response as to why it makes you feel good, aside from just you like it. They want you, the food industry wants you to stay hooked on food. So part of it is choice, but is like recognizing what we're up against, right? But also things like those sugary drinks and the frappuccinos, like the actual addictive component of those is significant. And so that's what happens.
Than heroin, right?
It literally is. Well, it's more addictive than cocaine. I do know that to be factually true. The statistic is, which keep in mind, statistics from the internet are what they are, but the statistic is that it's actually 8 times more addictive than cocaine. You would never be like, if somebody came to you and is like, I think I'm just going to do cocaine on the weekends, you would be like, that's a really bad idea, because it's so addictive. But the thing is that we're using food as our drug. And it's amazing because food can also be very therapeutic and healing to the body if you're choosing the right things, but it can be very destructive, but you don't see it that way at the time. I did not sit there and think, wow, like I was just pretty destructive to myself. I was just literally grabbing at something that made me feel like an okay moment. That's just what I was grabbing for.
But I want to step back for just a second to something you said, and that was when you lost all the weight, and I followed you on that journey. When you lost all the weight, you still didn't feel like you had arrived.
Nope.
You still had emotional baggage to deal with.
Yep.
And losing weight is not bad. I don't want to send my listeners the wrong idea, but what we're both saying is that if you don't deal with the internal thoughts and attitudes and beliefs that you have, you can lose all the weight, but you're still left feeling empty in your soul.
Absolutely.
Would you have considered yourself a yo-yo dieter?
Oh, yeah. I actually feel like that's how I gained my weight. And that sounds crazy, but I felt like I would do a crazy diet and I would lose 10 pounds, but I couldn't sustain it. And so maybe 3 days, maybe 8 days later, all of a sudden I would go back to how I ate, but it was like a binge cycle. So I would just because it was so restrictive. I would just eat everything in sight, and I would not only gain back the 10 I lost, I'd gain back 5 more. And then in the period between starting the next crazy diet, I'd gain 5 more. And then I'd have my fed up moment, my I don't want to be like this anymore. So what's the next crazy thing that I'm going to do? And it was a cycle of that. So I would diet and then gain and diet and gain. And that's literally how I gained my weight in the first place, the pattern.
And let's give a concrete example to my audience of what happens when you don't deal with the internal dialogue. You had weight loss surgery.
I did.
And many who are significantly overweight look at weight loss surgery as the be all to end all. This is going to help me lose my weight, and then all my problems will be solved.
Yep.
That's not what you found, was it?
It's not what I found. And the thing is, when I went in to have weight loss surgery, like they prepare you. I was completely aware of the statistics. And what they tell you is that this is only a tool and it only works if you do. And I was like, yeah, let's get it, whatever. I felt like it was foolproof, because the problem with the internet is that people who have weight loss surgery and regain their weight don't take before and after pictures and tell you about their story. Mm-hmm. The only people who tell you about their success with weight loss surgery are the people who are successful with weight loss surgery. And here is the crazier part. I work with women, speak to women every day who are like, I had weight loss surgery and I weigh 100 pounds more than the day I had surgery. I actually had a client of mine who lost like over 100 pounds through the program, but she literally had gained 150 pounds after weight loss surgery. Now, is she on there on the internet posting about that? No, of course not, because it's horrible. So for me, I started losing weight. I lost weight slower than everybody else who had, so we had like a support group, and everyone's like, I'm not even trying, the weight is just falling off. And I'm over here like, that was not my story. But the thing is that like during the liquid phase of the diet, we could only have liquids. Well, you're supposed to have broth and sugar-free stuff. I was drinking Frappuccinos, because the thing is that just taking out part of my stomach did not fix this, and it did not fix this. And so I lost maybe 40 or 50 pounds relatively quickly, given the circumstances, but then the scale started going back up again. And I was just finding new and more creative ways to eat my feelings, because I still had not faced myself. I still needed that sugar rush. I needed that sugar high. I needed to feel like I'd be okay. And I was still searching for the wrong thing. I was just finding new ways to go about it.
I want to make sure that we call a spade here.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that in our best attempts to look for satisfaction, love, contentment, we can do it through all sorts of ways, like a diet or weight loss surgery, or even over exercising. There are some that I know that deal with their feelings that way. This is all a ploy from the enemy of our soul, because he doesn't want us to have that true source of satisfaction, and he doesn't want us to truly live in our God-given identity. He wants us to numb out any way we can. He wants to set us up for failure, which is why I appreciate your approach that says you've got to address the mindset, because that's where he attacks us, is in our mind. So if we don't address that, we are going to be left empty. And then listening to him when he heaps guilt and shame and condemnation on us, that never comes from our Heavenly Father. It comes from the enemy who seeks to steal, kill, and destroy.
Amen.
Huh.
It's funny when you think about it that, like, I would say probably 95% of the worst things that you'll ever go through in your whole life are truly the thoughts in your own head.
Yeah.
It's truly your thoughts. I mean, obviously we have pain and we have physical things that we do carry, but the majority, when you think about in life, things that really impact long-term were the thoughts that you had to deal with what you were going through. And that's exactly what the enemy wants.
Yeah. So what would you consider the hardest part of your journey to not only lose the weight, but to become healthy in mind, body, and spirit?
You know, I mean, honestly, looking back, I think that the hardest part was the surrender part, where I had to say, hey, I have to let go of my ego. I have to let go of my pride. I have to completely surrender my wants, my life, to what Jesus wants for me. That was honestly, if you were to ask me, the hardest part, because I'm stubborn like most of us. And even though I would have told you at the time I was not egotistical, I was not prideful, that would have been a lie from the devil, because I was holding on to my idea of what my life should look like, my idea of what happiness and peace looks like, and me trying to take control of that. When you finally can start living in that kind of a way, when you live a here I am God kind of life, when you can say, you know what, your will be done, not my will, your strength, not mine, your might, not mine, things start to change and it gets easier. And little choices like food don't feel so hard anymore. And choices like moving your body, when you do it in such a way that you're wanting to do it because we're supposed to take care of our bodies, not because you want to fit society's standard, it just changes things on your journey. And not everyone will experience it that way. And it's sad, because when you truly can experience it in that way, you truly can have a joy everlasting, because most people are going to have stretch marks. Most people are going to have scars. Most people don't have the perfect body. So if that's all you care about is having a perfect physique, you're probably still not going to be happy when you arrive.
So good. Friends, I want to let you just sit with that for just a minute as we take a real short 1-minute commercial break. But I want you to stick with us to hear Christine share more about what we can do to take control of areas of our life that are holding us back. For you, that may not be weight. It might be something else, but I promise you it will apply. We'll be right back in just a minute. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective, where my guest today is Christine Carter Evans, otherwise known as Weight Loss Hero. Today, we're talking about the things that hold us back. Christine has been sharing before the break about her weight loss journey, but it's so much more than about weight loss. In fact, I want to read just a section out of her book, and I will link that in the show notes. But Christine, you said, I often ask myself, why can't I stop eating? Why can't I stop thinking about food? I thought I was crazy. The more I ate, the more weight I gained. And truthfully, I didn't mind at first. It made me feel safe. The problem, though, was that I was becoming my own abuser. I was the only one responsible for the continued mistreatment I inflicted on myself for many years. That's a pretty strong statement. But the enemy uses us against ourselves.
Yep.
What are other ways that you have seen your clients abuse themselves?
I think that, well, I mean, there's a couple of different avenues. You know, I think that the mindset, the pattern of self-pity, the pattern of shame, the pattern of guilt, it stays there. The self-sabotage. I think that one thing I experienced, and I know I'm not alone in this, but when I started to lose weight, I started to feel very exposed. Because I did, like I said, I felt safe. It was almost as if, and it was as if I had a bad nerve, and I had something covering that nerve to where I couldn't feel it and I couldn't see it, and I didn't know that something was wrong with it. But with every pound that comes off, that nerve is becoming more and more exposed, right? And if you've ever had tooth pain or had an exposed nerve, you know how painful that can be. But I see not only that, but then I also just see the destructive behaviors of coping mechanisms in general, whatever they are. I see a lot of people who struggle with food, and maybe they get under control. It becomes drinking. issue, or it becomes a shopping issue, or it becomes whatever it is. A lot of times we see both sides. So I see both the mental side and then the actual physical choices that are made from that. It all has the same root thing. Everyone thinks that they want to lose weight. And obviously I know that that's true, but there's usually some sort of dissatisfaction that's coming from somewhere else. When I realized I was actually just looking for joy, I was actually just looking for peace. And then the day that I realized I was actually just looking for Jesus is the day that my life really started to change. I think it's interesting because I heard not too long ago that a stronghold or sin, it feels like a hug at first until it won't let go. And when you were reading that, that came to my mind because that's how it felt. At first I felt safe in my weight. I felt like and honestly, I would have told you I would have owned it at one point. I would have said, I like this size. I like feeling this way because I felt like if I took that approach, I didn't have to feel people's rejection, right? Because I was saying that I liked it, but it wasn't my truth. But it became that stronghold. It became something that all of a sudden I'm like, now I don't feel safe. Now I feel trapped in my own body. And it was that I had to let go of.
What was one of the biggest lessons that you learned through your weight loss journey?
Oh man, there's so many to choose from. And I'm trying to think of the one that I really want to unpack. I think that my mind's like on fire right now. My brain's like, which way do I want to go? Probably the biggest thing that I've learned on my weight loss journey is and this is going to sound really small, but I think that one of the most important things that I've learned is that we do have the ability to do this, and that we do have a way out, and we do have the strength because it felt so impossible. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the most important things that I realized is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, that you can take small actions and you can take small choices and you can be excited about small victories. And that even includes in your mind, right? Even if you were just had the strength today to say no to something, that's better than having said no to nothing. And it's those little things and finding the small joys in the journey. I think that even in our relationship with the Lord, like if you only appreciate the big, massive changes in your life, you're probably not going to enjoy your walk with God very much, because God is the small whisper. God is the small little things that you see. And I think that we have to look at our own lives in the same way, is that when we step on this, even if you just say, I'm going to drink more water today, even if you just say, I'm going to move my body today, just the little things that you can take joy in will start to empower you to feel that you can do bigger things. And that belief, not only, I always want to be careful I don't ever want to say belief in yourself, because I don't believe in myself. I believe in the Jesus within me, right? So it's not a self-belief, but it is the knowledge and the understanding that we can do hard things. We can face hard things, and we are not ever alone in that endeavor.
I think so many people look at things like a weight loss journey as an all or nothing, when scripture tells us not to despise the small beginnings.
Yep.
And in my practice as a neuropsychologist, I saw a couple things. One was people more often than not wanted a quick fix.
Yep.
If they got a quick fix, it didn't last. Mm-mm. And the other thing is that people often tended to bite off more than they could chew and sustain in the long run. But what you're saying is if you just make a decision today to walk 10 minutes that you didn't walk yesterday or the day before, the success after that small decision then encourages you to make another small positive decision tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow you'll walk 20 minutes, or maybe you'll decide to get off the computer and move your body and play with your kids. Or maybe tomorrow You'll say no to that sugary drink at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and drink more water. But our success in the small things ends up being cumulative. But whereas we try to do everything big, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to exercise an hour a day and I'm not going to eat any more sugar, then we tend to fail. Then we feel bad about ourselves and then we regress. And that's part of the reason we gain more weight, don't you think?
Exactly. Is we don't step out of the shame cycle when we do that. And that's the whole thing, is that we get these spurts of motivation. Sometimes they're negatively fueled. So you're like looking at yourself and you're like, enough, I'm, whatever. Or you see something that very much inspires you. It's one or the other. And that's exactly what we do, is that we don't say like, okay, I'm just going to start, eating better portions and I'm going to just start moving my body. We're like, no. Starvation, I'm working out all day. Like, we go to these like crazy extremes that are not sustainable. And that's what true behavior modification changes. And I know you know this. Regardless of what science says, sometimes they say 21 days, sometimes they say 67 and a half days. And I don't know how they measure this because I think it's different for everyone. But true behavior change is like trying to stop a train from going the wrong way and then get it going the other way. And people think that you're just going to change. And most people do not have snap changes overnight. Almost everything that we do is a habit that's been created over time. And so when we expect ourselves to tomorrow to suddenly be the perfect picture of health, and I'm going to do yoga and I'm going to do all these things, we're going to fail at some point. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe 3 days from now. And when you fail, you are basically feeding into that part of your brain who says you're not enough, you can't do it, you're not strong enough, you'll always be a failure. You're just feeding. And instead, you're like, hey, I'm going to set some ridiculously small goals. When you crush them and you're like, hey, okay, I did it. Maybe I can add a little bit more. You can slide into that idea of what you want to be. And there's nothing wrong with having that as the picture of the goal. But we try to start where we want to end up. And that's why we go, well, if I'm not all in, I'm all out. So since I've messed this up, I guess I'll just go back to what I was doing before. And that's where we stay stuck.
And isn't it funny that I've never met anyone who gained all their weight overnight, and yet for some irrational reason, we expect to lose it overnight.
I'm telling you, you start dieting and you're like 8 minutes later, you're like, am I skinny yet? Like, I'm going to weigh myself again. And that, but that's
wait a minute, were you eavesdropping?
Well, and here's what's funny though, is we don't do that in any other areas. Like usually, if I were to tell you I wanted to set out to improve my credit, I'm not going to check my credit score all day. I know it's going to take time, right? I'm aware. If I say I want to be better with money and I want to save $1,000, well, I'm not just going to have it. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
When we start a weight loss journey, we're aware it's going to take time, but when we don't get instant results, we quit. It's the craziest phenomenon, but we all do it. We all struggle with it.
Yeah. So what is one thing that you find holds people back from making significant change for their own good?
Fear.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's fear. It's fear of failure. It's fear that you won't actually do it. It's sometimes fear of success. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear. Our brains are wonderful because our minds can help protect us. We have an incredible ability to analyze situations and make the best decisions. But have you ever noticed that when it comes to stinking overthinking, your brain almost never comes up with best case scenarios.
Right.
Only comes up with worst case scenarios to try to protect you. I read a book one time that talked about if there's a spider on the wall and, let me rephrase this. If there's a beautiful painting on the wall, but there's also a large spider next to it, 0% of your brain is like, wow, look at that painting. All of your brain is like, someone killed the spider, right? And it's just, it doesn't mean you're negative. It's just how it is. And if 2020 hasn't taught you anything about overthinking, it's that none of us were prepared for this.
Right.
None of us had planned out a pandemic in our brain and what that would possibly look like. So it is a waste of a lot of energy, but that's what we do is we go to step on this journey, and in your own unique way, You come up with all the reasons why it won't work. And then what's even worse is that usually there's a lot of commentary from the people in your life who like to try to tell you, oh, you're going on another diet? Oh, let's see how long you last this time, and like to feed that negativity into you. But that is the number one thing that keeps people from seeing the success. But most people, it keeps them from even getting started in the first place.
Yeah, so good. That's part of the reason I wrote Breaking Anxiety's Grip, is to help people conquer worry, fear, and anxiety and exchange that for God's peace.
Yes.
What is the most important mindset shift to change when someone's starting out on a new endeavor to better themselves, whether it's losing weight or it's something else?
I think one, I mean, there's several. I think that the all or nothing mentality, which I know we hit on just a little bit a minute ago, the all or nothing mentality is probably one of the biggest ones, because if you can't get past that mentality, you're not going to get much further than that. And so the all or nothing mentality simply is that you're an all in or an all out person, which I get it. I am an extremist by nature. I go hard at everything I do. I play hard. I work hard. I love hard. But instead of trying to change who I am, I try to harness that in the best ways that I can. And one of the things that I had to learn is that if I eat healthy all day and maybe I make a mistake, I don't have to throw anything away. I don't have to get off the train. I don't have to go back. I don't have to wait till Monday. I don't have to say, well, I ate bad, so let me eat bad the rest of the day. All of the same thoughts we all think. I can simply get back on track. And maybe tomorrow I have a bad meal too, but then I can simply get back on track, and I can keep just coming back, and knowing that I have to grant myself a little bit of grace here, right? And understand I'm a human and I'm going to make mistakes, and they don't all out more. It's just what we're doing. It's just life. It's just making better choices. And so when we can start to even recognize where we're falling into that trap, because if you're not aware of your own patterns, there's no way that we're going to be able to make progress. But just sit back and be like, I'm not a bad person, but you know what? I do fall into this habit sometimes. I do have this mentality. So let me start catching myself in it. And let me start trying to step out of that and realize, you know what? There's a middle ground here.
Mm-hmm. And, this makes me think, I imagine that some are listening right now and thinking, that's great for her, but I can't do it. I've tried every diet under the sun, from the cabbage soup diet to Weight Watchers to Jenny Craig. But that's where the enemy attacks us, is by saying, look how many times you failed. You can't do it. You'll always be a failure. But that's where it's so crucial to me that we know our true identity in Christ, because we were created in God's likeness, and we have been given the mind of Christ. And Jesus went into the wilderness and fasted for 40 days and nights. Talk about hard. And if Jesus can do that, we can draw on the strength and the power that he lends, because we've got his mind.
Exactly. Well, and it's no coincidence that after he's in this fasted state, physically he's going to be weak. He's going to be broken down. That is when the devil tempted him. And what did he tempt him with? Carbohydrates.
Right.
Eat this bread.
Bread.
I mean, that's the first thing. And we laugh. But imagine after 40 days, somebody like putting Chipotle in front of your face. Okay. You're going to be like, it would be really hard to say, we do not live on bread alone. And that's exactly what he did. But you know what I want to go back to is the Philippians 4:13, because that verse, whatever translation you're using, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But you know what's interesting is that a lot of people use that in a really unique way. So people will be like, I'm not going to study for that test. I'll pass because I can do all things through Christ. Okay. I want for some context clues here, and this was really powerful to me. If we go back to what Paul was saying in 4:12, I'm paraphrasing heavily, but what Paul was saying is that, like, hey, I've had a lot and I've had a little, and I've been sick and I've been well, and I've been in the penthouse and I've been in the gutter, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I say that because losing weight is hard, but you can lose weight through Christ who strengthens you. Facing your trauma is hard, but you can face those moments through Christ who strengthens you. You can't do it on your own. And when you realize that you are not strong enough by your own might and by your own will and by your own way to face those things, but you are strong enough through the creator of the world, the creator of the universe, to face those things, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be peaceful all the time. It doesn't mean you're not going to have hard days, but it does mean that you can have peace through those days. Right. It does mean that you can have joy, even though you have physical pain or you have emotional pain or you have things that you're dealing with. And that is what God offers us. That is what Jesus offers us on this journey.
So good. So good. Because really what you're saying is we cannot afford to try to rely on ourselves.
Nope.
Because when we do, we will fail every time. But if we rely on the God of the universe, Jesus, our Savior, He will always help us if we ask. But like you were mentioning before, sometimes we have to get over our pride.
Yep.
In order to be willing to ask for help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so many people hold on to that. So many people say, oh, I want to try to do it on my own, or, oh, I don't need help, or I don't need people, or I don't need God. People think that, but you know what? If we were so strong of our own way and we were so strong of our own will, then why are we here?
Exactly.
Why are we in this broken place? Why are we struggling so much? Because we're trying to rely on ourselves.
If we could do it, we wouldn't need a savior.
No, we wouldn't.
Friends, we've got so much more to talk about, but we're going to take a real quick 1-minute commercial break. Stick with us, because when we return, I'm going to ask Christine to share her hope-filled perspective for you today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to your Hope-Filled Perspective, where my guest today is Christine Carter, and we are talking about making positive changes in our life, whether it's weight loss or making a positive change in our relationship with the Lord. Christine, one of the things that I see so often when people want to make positive changes is that those who supposedly love them tend to sabotage their efforts. Did this ever happen to you? And if so, how do you recommend we deal with it?
So self-sabotage is definitely something that I struggled with even before I tried to lose weight. I think that a lot of the self-sabotage just comes from the negative self-talk in our head. It's the voices of the enemy and the voices even that we just create ourselves, that tell us that we're not good enough, tell us we'll never do it, tell us it's not worth it, tell us we'll never make it. And the Bible tells us to take every thought captive and submit it to Jesus. You know, I a lot for people, they don't really know exactly what that looks like. I mean, it sounds good, right? But when you are in that moment and you are at the breaking point and your mind is a wreck and you feel weak, what does that really mean? And so for me, this may sound really silly, and this is just something that I do, but I always feel like we have to speak truth to the lie. Yes. And then I literally physically will grab the thought and I throw it up. And it's just something I do because to me, it's symbolic of actually getting rid of it. So let's say that the lie is, you'll never lose weight. You'll never do it. It won't work. And you literally have to speak the truth, even if you don't believe the truth, because our feelings are not facts. Okay. If nobody takes anything else from this, your feelings are just feelings, and your feelings are not facts. What are the facts? The facts is that people lose weight every day. It is possible. If you gained weight, you can lose weight. It is possible. It may be difficult. We may have to try different things, but you can. And you have to consistently say, you know what? Okay, this is the lie. Maybe I haven't lost weight in the past. Maybe I failed before, but you know what? I'm going to keep trying, and I know I can do this. And Jesus, I give it to you. And that is just what I do, because it is always our negative thoughts that cause us to sabotage. Literally nothing else does. It's just our own thoughts that say, hey, you know, remember before when you tried to lose weight, what happened? And you're like, you know what? That may have happened before, but that's not going to happen this time. Jesus, I give it to you. And that's just how I personally, and I do that today, like real life. Yesterday did this because we just have stressful moments. And then that's just for me, just kind of a battle plan that I've learned to incorporate in my life.
I know that one of your favorite verses is 1 Corinthians 10:13, and it says the temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. How did you find this to be true in your own weight loss journey?
Isn't it just so comforting? Like, even just hearing you say it, I'm smiling because I'm just like, what a comfort it is to know. But the thing is that you have to actually lean in on that,
Yeah.
because I think we hear it, but then we try to stand alone, and we
Right.
hear it and we try to say, okay, but I feel powerless. And here's the deal. You are powerless on your own. You are not strong enough to resist the devil on your own. I don't even want to be strong enough to be able to fight the devil on my own, because I don't know in a human what that would look like. And so there comes a place, and that's that place of surrender. And for all of us, this looks a little different, but this is that place that where you really lean into Jesus and you really say, hey, you know what? I am powerless. I am powerless to stop this, and I only want your way. And it sounds silly, but it's, when you're sitting in your house and one of your kids has brought home cupcakes and you're sitting there looking at them and you don't feel strong enough. And that's where it's like, hey, you know what? I am strong enough. And I know that this just stinks right now. And I really want to go over there and eat it. But let me remind myself of truth. What is the truth? The truth is it's going to taste good for 5 minutes. It's going to feel bad for 5 years. The truth is that it's not really going to do anything for me. The truth is I don't need it. Like, you have to start speaking that truth, but we also have to rely. We've got this amazing power source, but if you don't plug into it, it's never going to turn on. Right. And so that's where it's like we have to lean in and do our part to say, you know what, I'm going to live in this place of surrender. I'm going to let you come in and be my strength, because he's literally waiting for us to just give it to him so he can come do that for us.
Yeah. One of my goals for this program is not just to help the listener who is struggling, but it's also to encourage listeners to help others who are
Yes.
going through a hard time. So from your experience, can you give us an example of something we can do to help a loved one who's on a journey to improve their health?
I think the best thing that we can ever do for even ourselves is when we pour into other people, when we serve other people, when we love other people. But when we see someone else struggling, just just checking on them, right? Asking them, how are you doing? How can I be here for you during this? Because I think so many people offer support, but it's kind of like, oh, well, if you want to do my diet, then I'll help you. But what about just being like, hey, like, I just want to check on you, because here's the deal. Diets are not the problem. Workouts are not the problem. It's how we think about them. And it's the mental battle that we go through. And so I think even saying, hey, let's set an accountability. I'm going to check on you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and just see how you're doing. And I'm just going to be here to be a listening ear. Like, that's what most people want, is they just want to be free to make mistakes and to try things and to fail at them and to stand back up and to try new things. And so if you have someone that in your life that's struggling with their weight, not asking them like, hey, have you thought about going on a diet, but just be like, hey, I know you said you're struggling. Like, how can I be here for you as your friend? What can I do? Because I think everybody has in their head an idea of what that looks like for them individually.
If a listener is feeling lost, maybe helpless or hopeless about their weight or their health in general, what hope-filled perspective would you offer them today?
Well, the first thing that I just want to say is, and I truly believe this, even though I don't know you and I don't know your story and I don't know what you've been through personally, but I truly believe that transformation is possible for anyone who seeks it. I truly believe that. And that's of heart, mind, body, and soul. I believe in every single way that there is a path and that we can step onto that path, and that it doesn't matter who you've been, and it doesn't matter what you've done, and it doesn't matter how far from where you want to be you feel that you are, that it starts with that first step, and that it's scary and it's unknown. And so often we cling to what feels safe because it's what we know, even if it's destroying us. But when we can muster up even just a little courage, must see courage that's needed to step on this journey and to hold hands with Jesus and to say, I don't know what this looks like and I'm scared, but I know that I'm supposed to take this next step. I promise you, I don't know how long it's going to take you. I don't know how difficult it's going to be. I don't know how many times you're going to feel like you failed, but I know that when you step on this journey and you just focus on the next right step, amazing things will happen. I just know that in my heart.
And what I know to be true is that God doesn't condemn us for being overweight, for getting grumpy with our children, for snapping when we've had a rough day. But even though he doesn't condemn us for those things, he loves us too much to leave us there.
Yep.
And God is never in a hurry. He is always an on-time God. So if you are looking at making significant changes, whether it's in your weight, or it's in your health, it's in your finances or your relationship, if you will press into him, he will take you on the right path, the right way, at the right time to get the right results. I believe that. I've seen it too often. It's happened in my life. It's happened in Christine's life. Listeners, I want to leave you with a scripture today. It comes from 1 Corinthians 6, verses 19 through 20, that says, don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. So you must honor God with your body. God is not ashamed of you or your body. He loves you so much that he sent Jesus to die for you, and he's given you the mind of Christ. What Christine and I have been talking about today is harnessing those thoughts, taking them captive, rejecting the lies of the enemy, and believing God's truth, whether it's in your health, your finances, your relationships, or something else that you're struggling with. Friends, I really hope that something that Christine and I talked about today has encouraged you and given you hope to face tomorrow. I would love it if this show has been a blessing to you, if you would consider going to iTunes, rating it, ranking it, and sharing it with your friends, because the purpose of this program is to provide biblically based, hope-filled perspectives to get us through the daily struggles. Christine, thank you for being on the program, for being so vulnerable, sharing your trials and your triumphs. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Friends, until next time, this has been your Hope-Filled Perspective with Dr. Michelle Bengtson. Until I talk to you again, make it a hope-filled week.